Hey everyone. So today we're going to talk about VMware Workstation Pro. Um, this is version 12. Before we get started on that, a couple things have happened. Um, One interesting thing, one of our followers, one of you guys, mentioned to me that someone on YouTube had been taking my videos, and I'm not sure how, but so they were taking their videos and uploading them as their own. I mean, it was the exact same video. They just stripped the header off, and there was a couple of those videos like that. YouTube has removed them, but I found that kind of interesting, and I would have never known unless somebody pointed it out. So thanks to you guys for keeping a lookout and keeping everybody honest. I appreciate that. Okay, back to VMware here. So VMware, I get a lot of questions about VMware, about using OpenStack or using MAAS, all that good stuff. Really, it doesn't work that well. There are better options than VMware when doing this kind of thing. I'm not a huge fan of VMware. I think it's way too expensive for what it does, and there are free options that are just as good, if not better. But nevertheless, I get a lot of questions about it, and you can get VMware Workstation 12 for free for 30 days. So we can do some testing. Let's run through. I'm not going to get really involved with the install because my laptop just won't support it. But let's get MAAS up and going. I'll show you how to set the network up, show you what to look out for on the disks and things like that so that you can get things going. And we'll just do a simple install. So let's get started. So I've already downloaded the free version of VMware Workstation. Again, you can have it for 30 days. So it's going to install something like this. So just pop that open, and you'll come to like a home screen that welcomes you and all that stuff. All you need is to download a license file or an ISO file of your choice. Of course, we're going to use Ubuntu because that's what we do here. But let's create a new virtual machine, and we'll go typical. So select your installer disk image. Mine's in my download folder, I'm sure. No, it's not actually. It's okay. So let's just go 1404 because we know it really well. Hit next, and this is for the MAAS server. This is the node servers will be installed a little differently. So let's call it MAAS. Oh, it already exists. Let's get rid of that. Alright. 20 gig will be fine. On your MAAS server, it doesn't matter as much, but on your nodes, it does. VMware has the ability to split them up into multiple files, these disk images. Do in a single file for now, just for safety's sake. Make sure you have enough space on your laptop. 20 gigs should be good, plenty for a MAAS. Finish. So that's the easy part. It's going to start it up and do an install. I don't really want it to do that yet. So I'm going to close it, and we'll hit power off. Before we get into configuring the MAAS machine, let's talk about the actual networking that VMware does. So let's go to Edit, and you're going to want to go, just put it on my computer on the top tier there, but go Virtual Network Editor. This is where people get tripped up and things get sometimes a little confusing. So we're using a bridged adapter. That means that all the nodes that we assign a bridge adapter are going to use the interface on this machine as their own and use the network above it. So it's just it's replicating kind of the interface that's on the machine that you're using. Make sure you select, when you're using a bridge adapter, the adapter that you want, because you're going to have many probably on computers nowadays. I am using the Wi-Fi adapter for my PC to get this done. So I want to make sure that's selected. So note that. Make sure you have that set correctly. And then the host-only adapter. VMware by default, if you use a host-only adapter, it's going to serve DHCP. And in the configuration that we're going to use with MAAS and all these nodes, MAAS is going to serve DHCP, and we want it to control it. So make sure that this is unticked. It'll be ticked by default. Make sure this is unticked, and put in the subnet information for the private network that we use. In these videos, we always use 10.1.1.1 for the gateway and the interface. So put in .0, and it's open pretty much all the way here to 255 addresses. So use this submask. This is very important, or the hosted network isn't going to work. So these are the only changes you really need to make. So just hit OK. And now we can go on to configure the MAAS hardware. So let's go to MAAS and let's see what it's configured. Edit virtual machine settings. 1 gig of memory is probably fine for this test. 1 processor on MAAS is fine. You're going to need some more on the other nodes. 20 gigs fine. You can keep your CD, that's fine. Networking we'll come back to. We're going to remove the sound. We don't care. We don't care about the printer. And display is fine. So network. Network is always the one that trips everybody up with these kind of configurations. And I'm going to check, so I'm good. So I've even had problems, and that's why I checked down here. I've even had problems with certain segments of my wireless network causing issues. But anyway, so one adapter, being your public adapter on MAAS, is going to have to be a bridged connection with your physical network, because you need to get out to the internet and you need to be able to route into the server. You don't really need to replicate the state of the connection, of the physical connection, but it's not a bad idea. So that will be your public interface. So let's save that. Well, we just add. And then we're going to add an interface because we need one for our private network. So let's do network adapter. And this will be host only. So it's only going to be routable within this computer. And this will be connected for your other nodes. So let's finish that. Bridged automatic host only. Let's see what we got in here. We can generate MAC addresses for these. Yep. And I've had to do some tricky stuff with LAN segments to get this stuff to work, but let's see what it does. Okay. That should work. Let's go ahead and try. We might have to tweak this stuff as we go, but let's go ahead and get installing. And this is a standard Ubuntu install. Nothing different about it at all. You will have to click on it to lock your keyboard in to be able to control it. I'm just going to install. And by the way, to unlock your mouse and keyboard, you do Control-Alt by default. You can click in there to relock it. So this is a standard install. I'm going to speed through this in the video because you've seen this before. We'll wait till it gets to hardware here real quick to see what it does about the network. Okay, and just use 0. Okay, fast forward. Okay, install's all done. So here's the console. Let's log in. Nothing specific about VMware other than regular hardware. It should act just the same. I just want to come in here and see which IP we grabbed, which is 242. And that, we use that bridged interface, so it's just grabbing them from our regular network. So this is the end of the life of this console. I don't like using the console. It doesn't have the same features as PuTTY. I just use PuTTY because that's what I know how to do best. So 242. And I already have one of these. It's probably something else, yeah. Okay. Let's log in through PuTTY. And we're going to do all the same stuff pretty much that we would do in a standard install. So, yeah, let's go ahead and update. And we'll upgrade just for good measure. Pop open our documentation, make sure we don't miss anything. The only thing extra I installed, as usual, was OpenSSH server, so I could do this stuff. Okay, we're done with that. Let's put some Python properties on. And some common software that doesn't come with the regular. It does come with this install. That's fine. Juju comes with OpenStack nowadays, but we'll go ahead and add the repository. Can't hurt anything. MAAS maintainers has become regular MAAS. I need to update that on our documentation. I think that will work for now. It's been depreciated, but it still works. But let's hit this just in case. There we go. I'll update that. And Cloud Installer. Go ahead and add that while we're here. And we'll update again. And let's take a look at our network configuration before we go any further. And that didn't work. Okay. 14.4, everything's business as usual. Get rid of all this real quick. We're going to paste in our usual stuff. I already have a 150 on my network, so let's make it 151. This one doesn't matter because that's the private network. You can use it over and over and over if you'd like. So I'm just going to change it to 151 so I don't conflict with my existing MAAS server. Let's, while we're in here, there you go. Oh. And exit. And let's reboot. One nice thing about being virtual, you can see the console, see how far it is. It's already done. And looks like 151's working. Just a quick. Yep, looks good. Okay, so we'll install MAAS, and we'll just let it do its thing. Okay, the MAAS install is done. Let's create our user ID. Okay, let's go to the GUI. There it is. Log in. Let's start our boot images downloading. We'll just keep 14.4 for this test. Make sure that starts up. Okay, we're going. Let's add our SSH key. So we're on to this page. Your boot images do impact your internet performance. Okay, let's go ahead and create the SSH key. We'll grab that and put it in the GUI. That's good. Let's go ahead and set cluster up while boot images are still going. So your ETH1, your public interface, really all you need is a default gateway in there, and we'll use the public router. So that's all you need for that one. And then interface 1, make sure you switch this to DHCP and DNS. You want the card IP for your gateway, 1.1, that's fine, to 224, and then a really low static range, 225 to 254 should be more than enough. Save the interface. Okay, that's good. Still waiting on images. Let's do settings. And the only thing we'll have to change is the upstream DNS for DNS lookups that aren't done by the server. I just put my router and Google as a secondary just in case. Save that. And we will wait on boot images. And boot images are ready. So that's pretty much it for the MAAS install. Let's talk real quick about Either Wake. So we would usually install Either Wake for Wake on LAN. VMware doesn't handle Wake on LAN very well. Virtual software doesn't handle Wake on LAN very well. I have read that people have used a plugin to use Wake on LAN with VMware or virtual environments, but I can't get it to work. There's some scripting you can do to fake it out and have it, send a power on command through VMware, but I haven't been able to reproduce it, so we're just going to go without it. It kind of sucks because we can do that on the real hardware, but on the other side, 1604 and MAAS 2.0 don't offer Wake on LAN as of now. So going forward, we're not going to be able to do it anyway. So we're not going to have Wake on LAN. But being in a virtual environment, you can just hit the power button down here. So with that said, let's go create a node to use. So we'll go back to VMware, and we'll just let's just hit my computer. And let's see, go home, and we'll just create a new virtual machine. Typical's fine. You tick down here, you'll install your own operating system because your operating system gets installed via the MAAS server and an image, Pixie boot. So you don't want to install anything, so just tick that, hit next. It's going to be Linux 64-bit, hit next. Let's call it node 1. Probably have to delete a folder. Yep. That's fine. So, split again. We talked about this during the MAAS install. You can split virtual disk. It does things a little differently, and it might cause your MAAS server to see them kind of crazy if you split them. But it will work. For now, just go with one big file. And hit finish. So before we try to start it, let's go in and edit this. So on cloud nodes, you're going to want more than one processor to support VM. So just for this test, tick it up to 2 cores, just so we can, just so you know that you have more than one core, so you can support more than one machine. Virtualization software, as far as emulating that with VMware, I've never had a problem with it just being set to automatic, so we're going to leave that. SCSI hard drives. SCSI hard drives do work. I have more experience with SATA, but with VMware, it doesn't seem to be a problem. So that's fine. In fact, you have to have 2 hard drives to support the OpenStack setup. So add another hard drive. Create virtual. Again, I'm sticking with single file. Multiple split files will work, but stick with single file because I know it works 100%. The one thing I do recommend, and this is just on my hardware, understand, if I emulate my CD, DVD drive more than once, my computer will blue screen, and you might get that. I don't know, but remove that from your nodes. It has caused me a ton of problems. So remove that CD drive from your nodes. It seems to work okay if you leave it on MAAS, but take it off all these. These will all be host only. For the first one, so you're going to need a public and a private card on some of these nodes, right? As we've seen in other OpenStack installs. So you can add another card for public, but for this first one we'll only need the private, because this is where the landscape installer does all its stuff. So remove sound card, remove printer. But on the other nodes, all you would have to do is just add a network card and put it in private. So all this looks good. Hit OK. And we should be ready to go. So let's go ahead and power this machine on. Just doing Pixie boot. And it found it. That's a good sign. Found all the drives. That's also a good sign. Usually right there is, if you're having controller issues, right there is when you're going to blue screen. Alright, it's almost done enlisting. Alright, it's finishing up, and it should power itself off. And it's powered down. Okay, let's go back to the GUI. We now have a new node. Let's take a look at it. We want to set power type, and we could set it to wake on LAN. In 2.0 there is a generic power type, or a manual power type. We can set it wake on LAN for now. That won't hurt anything. Just hit save. And you can name it whatever you want. The default name is fine with me. So now we need to commission, and we don't have power control, remember? So hit commission, hit go, and then go back to VMware and hit play on that node. This is a good sign because this shows that you can get out to the internet. Okay, the node has powered off again. Go to the MAAS GUI and your node is ready to go. Okay, it's ready to go. Let's pop back over to the window here. That's good. Let's go ahead and create our GG environments file, just in case we need it. Go get your API key. Save that. And we need to install OpenStack. While that's installing, I'll show you something. So another good thing about VMware is that you can take these nodes and you can clone them. You can right click on that and hit manage and hit clone. Just keep the current state. You'll want to create a full clone, not a linked clone, so it has its own disk. Name it node 2. And there you go. You've got one that's exactly the same, so now you can just keep cloning for as many nodes as you want. You can power it on, it'll enlist, everything will be fine. That's a tip. We can go ahead and power it on just to show you. Everything will be the same. Remember, you're going to want some of these with a public interface, so you have to add those. Even if you clone, it's just going to clone what you have. So OpenStack is now installed. The other node is enlisting. Let's go ahead and fire up the OpenStack installer. We'll try autopilot. This is exactly the same as it would be on hardware. There's our API key, and we'll confirm it. You'll see it knows that MAAS has one node available ready to go. So there's that new one that just enlisted. So that cloning feature will be very handy if you're doing a bunch of these. So we are ready to go. Let's go ahead and hit enter. You'll notice sometimes this screen gets stuck. It doesn't ever go to the counter screen. But it is, so we're bootstrapping GG now. So when you see that bootstrapping GG, no matter if it goes to the counter screen or not, that's when you know you're actually doing some work. So it's allocated and deploying. So when it starts deploying, then you need to come over here and hit play on that node. You have to kind of keep track of which one's which, right? So set your names accordingly. But I knew, since this is a simple install, I know that node 1 was that one, because it's the only one we have ready. So now we're deploying. So we're bootstrapping GG. Okay, so everything else is pretty standard after this. I've showed you how to make nodes. I've showed you how to get the network set up. Everything else is pretty much as the guide does. Depending on what version of landscape you're running or what version of OpenStack or software. Some of these are now failing, some of them are working. Just kind of depends on what version you're doing. So I'm going to let this bootstrap, and then we can proceed with the cloud install, from the GUI on if you have all the nodes. But that's really all I wanted to do, get you ready, get you up and running on VMware. Again, everything else should be just like we do on hardware. But if you have questions, put them in the comments, and we'll get your issues resolved. Thanks for watching.